Angela, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I'm Angela Lazar, Digital Project Coordinator from NCEA, and I will be facilitating this webinar today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A window. We will monitor the questions and try to answer them all in the allotted time. At the end of this session, I will share a link to the online survey and how to receive a certificate of completion for the webinar. So today's webinar, Student Achievement Through Gamification and Game-Based Learning, will share teacher strategies to move the classroom from teacher-centered to student-centered. Methods include creating and selecting educational games best suited to your content, grade level, and students' unique interests and needs. Our speaker today, Stephanie Horgan, Professional Development Director for Archangel Education and Technology. Stephanie Horgan is an experienced educator serving for more than 17 years as a classroom teacher and school administrator. Stephanie specializes in leading professional development sessions that focus on assimilating technology into cross-curricular units. She has spoken nationally on the topics of project-based learning, technology in the classroom, STEAM, and digital tools. She is a Google certified trainer and enjoys helping teachers learn best practices for integrating technology into their daily lessons in unique and creative ways. Before I turn it over to our presenter, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. O Christ, our teacher, we thank you for the gift of Catholic schools, where the message of your life, death, and resurrection is proclaimed. Discipleship is modeled, and worship of you is cultivated, and community is experienced. Increase our zeal for ensuring that all children and families can benefit from an authentic Catholic education, and that Catholic schools grow in their ability to nurture the souls and form the minds of its students for generations to come. We ask this in your name. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you for joining us today, Stephanie, and feel free to take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today to talk about student achievement through gamification and game-based learning. This is a subject that I feel really passionate about. It's something that I'm excited to share lots of ideas with you about today. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk about a little bit how I came into Catholic education. I went to a small Christian college in Eastern North Carolina, and came out and received a job, my first job, through a smaller Catholic school in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that school then grew to almost 700 students. And so we weren't so small anymore. And I was really blessed to be a part of that community for almost 13 years, just shy of 13 years. And then I went into administration of a Catholic school in Northern Virginia, where I was blessed to be a part of that community for an extended amount of time. And I feel really very blessed to have been able to be a part of that community and see the growth that came, and also through COVID. Got my school through COVID, and then I was challenged with the opportunity to step over to Archangel and become the professional development director here. So that's a little bit about my journey. I am mom to 4 beautiful boys. I've got a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and twin 9-year-olds. So I know a little bit about gamifying because I use it in my house very often. And so I'm excited to share with you some opportunities, ways that you can gamify your lessons and just kind of create a new way to keep students engaged and interested. So I wanted to begin first by sharing with you a link to my presentation today. So I'm going to start by sharing my, right in the chat. If you take a look, I'm going to post a link to the to the presentation, and you can, it'll force you to make a copy of it. So go ahead and just click, make sure you're signed into your Google Drive, and it will force a copy, and you can have all of the resources in here. Everything in here is hyperlinked and open to you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And we're going to kind of move through this. If you are on a phone, or if you have your phone with you and you would like to use the QR code right here, this will absolutely take you to, yeah. So chat is disabled, my apologies. I'm going to go ahead and post it right here in the Q&A. Here it is. And everybody should be able to see that.
And Stephanie, my apologies to interrupting. It does look like that is requesting access. So when you have a moment after the presentation, if you could double check those settings.
Absolutely. My apologies for that. So if you, we'll make sure that we go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and start by taking a look at our schedule today. We're going to talk about student engagement, understanding benefits. We're going to talk about examples of gamification, resources, and tips for successful implementation. And so just so you know, when you're taking a look through this presentation, you'll be able to click on each of these balloons, and it will take you directly to the site or the slide that I am presenting on. And then you can absolutely take any of the resources that you want. So let's go ahead and continue. So what is gamification? You know, it's kind of funny. My sister actually said to me, "Is that a real word, gamification?" And I said, "You know, I'm not actually 100% sure if gamification is a real word or not." However, it is a word that has kind of begun to pop up in the education world quite often. And so let's talk about what it is. It's the integration of game elements and mechanics into the non-game context to enhance engagement and motivation. Motivation. So what does that mean? I think that gamification has demonstrated a profoundly positive impact on student learnings and student learning outcomes in classroom participation. It's something that I began using a number of years ago. And I will tell you a little story that my first venture into this was in my third year of teaching. I decided that I was teaching latitude and longitude to fifth graders. And I decided that in order to teach them that, I was going to do a human-sized version of Battleship. And when I say a human-sized version of Battleship, I mean I took over my classroom and my partner's classroom and taped out the floor and used walkie-talkies and did latitude and longitude to teach students how to move. It worked. It really worked. There were some drawbacks, but the students learned that latitude measured east to west, but measured north to south, and longitude measured north to south, but measured east to west. And that was my goal, my outcome. And so it had, when I say a profoundly positive impact, I had fifth graders who, at their eighth grade graduation, my fifth graders still recalled that particular game and that particular day of learning. And that was really inspiring to see. I think by infusing elements of games into the educational settings, it captures the student's attention and it transforms learning into an engaging, but not only engaging, interactive experience. And we know that sometimes when we take things that we see and we hear and we put it into action and we actually do it kinesthetically, it helps to move it from that short-term to the long-term memory. And the heightened engagement translates into improved motivation. And I think as students are naturally drawn to challenges and rewards, there's a result that we see that they become more active participants in their learning process. They're tackling these tasks, they're participating in discussions, and really taking ownership of their own education. Gamification fosters an environment where students are not just passive uh, learners or passive recipients of knowledge that is being uh, told to them, but they become active problem solvers, critical thinkers, and collaborators. We know that 21st century learners, we have those four C's, the four C's of 21st century learning, and I think the critical thinkers and the collaborators and the creativity and the community portions are all brought in with the gamification. And I think it not only enhances academic achievement, but it also equips the students with these valuable life skills that they're going to see not only in their school life, but also in their life beyond school. And it becomes an enjoyable and rewarding journey. Education does. And so let's talk about these benefits. We talk about increased engagement, and gamification really captivates the student's interest in it. It does that by turning lessons into exciting and interactive experiences. It incorporates elements and points like challenges and rewards. It keeps students motivated. It keeps them eager to participate. I think with gamifying, a lot of students play video games. My own children play video games, and so sometimes their rewards and their consequences are tied to those video games. And students in our classes, we see that too. And I think that relating to students where they are really helps. And I want to pause for a moment, and I just want to say that everything in your class cannot be a game. I don't expect that. That's not how I taught. That's not how I would teach anybody to teach. You really have to see the benefits of gamification, and I recommend that when you see these things, start slow and incorporate something that may be more like a more dry topic, to make the learning feel less like a chore. But if you've got something that's really interesting and the way that you present it is interactive and engaging already, that doesn't need to become a game, because not every part of life is going to be a game. But this just helps students become a little bit more intrinsically motivated, I feel. And so I'm going to give you some ideas today for ways that you can do that. But please know that I don't expect your entire classroom to become a game, because that's just not realistic. But there are benefits to gamifying portions of your classroom. So when we talk about enhanced motivation, I think the game mechanics that we're going to discuss today, earning points, badges, quests, progressing through levels, really tap into that a student's intrinsic motivation. The rewards provide that sense of achievement and recognition, and they encourage students to set and accomplish goals. And that intrinsic motivation can lead to improved performance and a willingness that enables students to tackle more challenging concepts and more difficult tasks. And then I think finally, one of the main benefits of providing games in your classroom is active learning. I think that sometimes we see students that are passive learners. They sit there like this, and they'll put their heads down. That was a big one that I saw, that it was passive learning. They weren't taking an active part in their own learning, and they need to be active actively involved in the learning process. They can't be passive recipients of knowledge, because it's not going to do them any good in the long term. They may memorize it for a test, but it's not really going to teach them in the long run. And so when they become involved in their learning and they make decisions and they solve problems and they apply their knowledge in these real world experiences, it deepens their understanding of a topic. It it um, it also improves their understanding of subject matter that you're teaching, and so that improved retention can reinforce the learning that you're trying to get them to understand. And it also personalizes their learning too. It can be tailored to meet students' needs. And so I'm going to be providing you with a couple of examples of what I mean by that, because again, please understand that I'm not saying to you that you are going to personally recreate 27 different games for your students in your classroom. That's not what I'm saying. And that's just, again, not realistic either. But when I talk about individualization, I want to highlight a little bit here of badges and stickers. So I'm going to forward this a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Badges and stickers in the classroom was something that I did actually when I was working with the tech teacher. We decided to create kind of like an encore class or a specials class that had to do with a help desk. We were relatively new to Chromebooks and one-on-one Chromebooks, and students were breaking Chromebooks. I know that's shocking and probably doesn't happen in your school, but it did in ours. And so what we did was we trained the students how to fix basic problems on the Chromebook. And so they would go through a quote unquote training with us and they would learn. And so once they learned, they were able to earn a badge that they could then put at the end of their email signature. And so other students and other teachers knew that they would be able to assist in the classroom with simple Chromebook issues. I then took it and applied it to my classroom, where when a student learned their multiplication tables in third grade, they became a multiplication master, and they were able to put this at the end of their email signature. Or if you have a classroom site and you have like a student profile on your classroom site, they can put their badges there. Some schools don't have student emails, which is totally fine. And so you can have other ways that students can display their badges. It can just be something that is shared with the families, something that's sent home to the families. Every time a student moved up, we did DRA reading. So every time a student moved up a level in a reading, we would give them a reader status achieved. So we didn't say, it was my personal preference. I didn't say what level reader they were. I didn't tell, what their Lexile level was or anything like that. I just said that they had achieved a reader status. And so that was really fun. When they completed a project on a green screen, they earned a green screen badge. And so I created these in Google Drawings. You can customize them to any concept. You save them as an image and you can share or email them to distribute them, or you can have them added to an email signature. You also, if you don't have any of those things, you can have students save them in their Google Drive, have them create a folder of badges and stickers that they've earned. And this can be something that they have just control of, kind of like a digital portfolio, and something that they're proud of. And maybe achievements earned is one of the folders that they have in their Google Drive, and they can keep these badges and stickers that you give to them within the Google folder. Again, this is something very easy to create in Google Drawings. If you want a how-to, a tutorial, just email me. My email will be at the end of the presentation, and I can send you a step-by-step tutorial on how to do that. But I think the visual rewards that you see here with the badges and the stickers, they I apologize for that. They serve as more of a tangible, something that the students can see and put their hands on reward of the achievement. And I think that's something that's instantly gratifying to the students and something that they can be really proud of, something that they have mastered a really challenging concept. And you want to recognize to them that they have demonstrated exceptional effort for it, which in turn triggers that sense of pride and that sense of accomplishment. And you didn't spend any money. You didn't have to go terribly out of your way, but it taps into that intrinsic motivation, encouraging students to strive for a higher level of achievement. Other students can see them sometimes if they share them on their email. Like I said, if you have a teacher that recognizes that the student has a basic understanding and knowledge of how a Chromebook works, they can help other students in the classroom. They can be called on to kind of foster that healthy camaraderie in a classroom, of peers helping peers. And it can help to transform the learning environment into one of like a kind of a gamified adventure, I guess you could say. It motivates the students to actively engage with their content, with what's going on around them. And so this is something that is just something simple and fun that you can do. And so again, badges, digital stickers are really a fun thing to do. So let's talk about quests and challenges. A quest and a challenge is something that I think really is really fun. For me, it was really fun to think of how I could create quests in my classroom and challenges in my classroom, where students would, their interest would be really piqued, and they would have a real desire for exploration and transforming a classroom into a really exciting and engaging place. I did want to let you know that I was able to update the sharing settings. So when you click on it, you should be able to access the presentation now. And as well, any of these hyperlinked documents in here, you have access to, please take and use. And so I want to share with you one of the quests that I was able to do. And this is a very step-by-step tutorial on discovery boxes. And discovery boxes was something that I found through our local history museum. The History Museum in Raleigh, North Carolina was sharing these discovery boxes. And I found, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to have these for my classroom. And they were just giving them away, renting them to teachers for no cost. But they only had a limited amount. And I was like 30th on the wait list. And so I thought, by the time I get these things, we're going to be way past that unit. And so what I decided to do was to make my own. And so I created discovery boxes related to the establishment of the 13 original colonies. I was teaching 5th grade at the time, and my students, they wanted to, I wanted to make it really fun for them. And so what I did was I set up 13 different stations in my classroom, and every single station had a box, and it looked like this. On the outside was a neon colored state, and I numbered the state by which number it came into the colonies as. And so I will tell you that it took forever to cut out Massachusetts. But it's a great state, but it took a long time to cut out Massachusetts. Virginia was not a pleasant ride either. So, but it was really, really fun. These actually are Chromebook boxes. I didn't throw away the Chromebook boxes when I got them. I thought somebody can use these for something. So I had them broken down and actually just stacked in a cabinet. And I put them back together and wrapped them in butcher paper, as you can see, and then just glued the cutout states onto the outside of them. And so what I did was I decided, again, I would be doing the 13 original colonies, and I divided it into New England, middle, and southern colonies. And these, again, are just examples of discovery boxes that you could do. You could do the sacraments, you could do parts of math, branches of government, parts of speech, weather. You could do PEMDAS or GEMDAS, depending on how you teach it, et cetera, et cetera. It can be used in all areas. And so what I did was in each box, I took pictures, and I would print out a picture, and this is a picture of John Winthrop, and I would label it, I would laminate it, I would give a little description about it, and in each box I had, sometimes I would have hands-on examples, like if a colony was particularly known for bringing in revenue for cotton. I had actually like bits of cotton that I would put into a baggie, and the students could look at it and touch it and feel it. And then I would I created a Google form that went with each colony. And so the students would dump out all of this information, and they would have a little QR code, and you can kind of see, if I come up here, you can see right down here by my friend, there is her QR code right there. And so the students would use their Chromebooks, scan the QR code, and it would take them to a Google form. And it would ask questions about what kind of things they saw in the box. And they would have to work collaboratively and answer questions related to what was in the box. I created these questions myself. A lot of times I would use what was in the book as a resource. I would do my own research, however I wanted to put the boxes together. And then the students would work, they worked in groups of 2, 3, or 4, depending on how I let them choose. They would put themselves in groups, and they would move from station to station, and then they would answer all of the 13 Google forms, and that is how I taught about the 13 original colonies. And so it took a little over a week, because I think we aimed, if I remember correctly, we aimed to do like 2 in a day. It took a little bit of time, and we had like 45-minute classes. And so the first half of the first day were my rules, where I established my goals and how I wanted to set this up. And then we did one that first day, and then we had the next 6 days, we had the rest of the 12. So we divided it up. So I think it took 7 school days of working together to do these discovery boxes. And when I tell you they were so much fun, I was having just as much fun as the kids were watching them do these discovery boxes. It gave them a sense of purpose. It gave them a sense of direction. And I think it made the learning process very goal oriented, because the students knew exactly what I was expecting from that challenge that I was giving them. And they completed those tasks, and they solved the problem. They conquered the challenge, and they had a sense of accomplishment at the end of this, and it fueled their motivation to continue learning about the 13 original colonies. The American Revolution, which came after, of course, was a huge portion of the 5th grade curriculum in the state of North Carolina. And so I figured, like, if I was going to have to be teaching this stuff for probably almost, I think took up about 2.5 months of the curriculum of my time. I was going to have to make this fun because I could not lecture about the 13 original colonies for a week straight and expect them to be motivated and excel in their understanding of what the point of the colonies were. So I wanted to move on, and I wanted to share with you some examples of how you could use um, quests or challenges in your classroom. And so I'll start here with treasure hunts. And when you do treasure hunts, it doesn't have to just be with young students. It certainly can be with young students, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a treasure map or a series of clues related to the lesson content. And students can follow the clues to find their hidden treasures or the pieces of the information that you're wanting them to collect. It can be used in geography or history or even problem solving skills in math. And that I think would be really fun. It's not often that you're able to bring a whole lot of gaming into math. So I think another way that I brought a little bit of gaming into math were escape room challenges. And when I was an assistant principal at a school in Northern Virginia, I had an amazing middle school math teacher, and she would develop these escape room challenges. And I would get her to send them to me just because I thought that they were really fun to do. And I don't always include math as one of my strengths. And so students would be encouraged to solve a series of puzzles or riddles, and they would, related to whatever the unit was, and then they would have to escape the room, which was done usually through Google Slides, and they would have a time limit on it, and they sometimes they would work together in teams, and sometimes they would work individually if it was given for homework or something like that. But that was really fun. Mystery investigations. This I saw was really neat. When students were, I saw this used by a science teacher, and had the students dress up in lab coats and goggles, and they put on gloves, and um, they were investigating. They were there to collect the evidence and analyze the data and make the deductions. They would make their inference and their hypothesis, and that was how she taught about the scientific method. And I will tell you that those students knew the scientific method better than any group of students I had ever seen knowing the scientific method, because it wasn't something that was told to them. It was something that they actively participated in. And so that was really inspiring to watch. And if you don't think that middle schoolers like to dress up, they do. A lot of them do. Some of them won't do it, but a lot of them actually will do it, and they'll get really into it. And sometimes those students that are the more outspoken leaders, when they dress up and they get into it, the other students that are a little more shy actually become really invested in following those students as leaders. So let's talk about I don't know, simulation games. So simulation games, like if you've ever played, I don't know if you're my age, SimCity or Civilization, used to teach concept related to like city planning or history or politics. Students can collaborate and build and manage cities or civilizations. It can be online. It absolutely can be online, but it doesn't always have to be too. That's a really fun way to bring in Legos and Lincoln Logs into your classroom as well, to have students actually build those cities and talk about how they would manage it. I saw this done with Greek Greek cities and politics with a seventh grade classroom, and that was really neat. So those simulation games where they have to build it out and actually act it out are really a fun way to gamify as well. Literary quests. So let's talk about a literary quest. I think this was one of the most fun ideas I ever had. I created a quest based on a book that we were studying in class, and the students had to take on the role of the character, and they had to complete challenges and tasks that aligned with the plot or the theme of the book. And it promoted a really deeper understanding and analysis. I did this with middle schoolers when we were reading A Christmas Carol, and they had to take on the role of Scrooge. And I did this because Scrooge is one of the most complex characters in any novel, and because he changes so. I mean, he does a 180 change from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, but uh, the change doesn't happen. Literally, doesn't happen. Um, or literally it happens overnight, but it happens in stages overnight. So and so it's meant to uh, I really wanted the students to analyze that journey through the night with the four different ghosts that Scrooge encountered, from Jacob Marley to the ghosts of the past, present, and future, and how Scrooge changed through that journey. And so we made it a quest. We literally made it a quest. But I also told the students to think of a quest like kind of like the old, King Arthur and Guinevere quests. And that's really fun as well. Of course, when you talk about a historical time travel, that's really fun. I think it would be really neat to actually have the students build a time machine that could transport them to different historical eras in your classroom throughout the year. It could be something, maybe even you dress up as the teacher and you come in and you go through the time machine, and the classroom is transported back to that time that you're teaching about, whether it be a historical event or a particular historical figure, or even a civilization. I think it would help them gain a deeper appreciation of the history. If you're not familiar with Math Olympiad I put on here because it's something that is already established. I did not create a Math Olympiad, but it could be really fun if that's a club that you do. Even Science Olympiad is something that our school used to have. And there are math challenges and competitions where students can earn points for solving these complex math problems. And it really taps into those math enthusiasts. And so I think that's really fun as well. So these are just a couple of ideas for how you can look at each of your areas of study, and how you can bring in some games without necessarily playing a board game, or having students create a board game. I think when I think of gamification, I think, oh, I'm going to have students create a board game. But it doesn't have to be that. There can be pieces of gaming involved without necessarily creating a whole board game in the classroom. And so it creates that dynamic and enjoyable learning environment. And I think it fosters engagement and motivation, as well as student growth, personal growth. And so let's talk about 3D and laser printing. More and more schools are getting 3D printers or laser printers in their class, or in their schools. I will tell you that my high schooler, he has they have a series of 3D printers in their school, and every semester each student can make up to 4 things that they can laser print in their high school. And so that I think is so cool. And I know students that I don't have one, but I know students that actually have 3D printers in their home. One of my end of the year gifts that I got from a student was a little keychain that they had printed of the continental United States. Um, and given it to me, and that was my end of the year gift. They had designed it and 3D printed it at their house, and that was my gift. And I still have it. I treasure it. I don't keep it on my keychain because it's pretty delicate, especially with the states that kind of come off the edge. There, Texas and Florida and Maine up in the corner, but I still have it with me. And so 3D and laser printing, these are really fun. I just wanted to highlight Thingiverse. Thingiverse is free lesson plans for teachers for how to use 3D and laser printing in the classroom. So you can click on this, it'll take you right to Thingiverse. But also I wanted to give you just some ideas. A lot of these ideas came from social media groups like on Instagram, on X, which used to be Twitter, and also on Facebook groups for teachers using 3D image printing or laser printing in the classroom. Excuse me. So the possibilities are endless. These two sites, MakerBot and Glowforge, they have beginner free resources that you can use with students in the classroom. And these are just some ideas for things that you can create in your classroom. Ornaments are really fun to do. And then I just highlighted here, or hyperlinked, I apologize, a copy of a 3D STEM project for a STEM elective. And this was how we introduced the idea to the students, and then what they had to do to create. They had to create a container, and what the container would hold, and how did it best fit the needs. And for this particular one, we had the students use a program called Tinkercad. Again, a free resource. Use Tinkercad. You have access to this. Please go ahead and click on it, use it, and this was kind of the process that we used with the students. So we asked them to ask themselves a question, imagine, plan, create. How can they improve it? Then create it, and then create it again. So they had to create it in Tinkercad, and then they had to actually create it by printing it out on a 3D printer. And then they had to reflect and give some answers. And so again, you have this, you have access to this. And it was great because we gave them just a question and they had to come up with the solution. And Tinkercad is great because Tinkercad actually has some shapes available, and it allows you to Tinkercad allows you to actually move and view an image that you're going to 3D print from all sides and directions. So the students can actually move it, manipulate it, and move it to look and see if if maybe they have a hole in it. I don't know, but they would be able to manipulate it, turn it, and see. Another way that my son, actually my 13-year-old, when he was in 7th grade last year, he used Tinkercad and was able to create a model of a skateboard. So he had to design a skateboard with various features, and then the students 3D printed the skateboard. Again, you don't have to have a 3D printer to do these things. You can have the students create it in MakerBot or Glowforge or Tinkercad, and actually just keep it on there. They can look at it in 3D. So they don't have to print it. It just has the ability to be printed. But again, it doesn't have to be 3D printed if you don't have a 3D printer. It doesn't mean that you have to be limited to not using these resources just because you don't have a 3D printer. You can absolutely still use these things in the classroom. So let's move on and talk about task cards. Task cards was kind of what I started when for my early finishers. I had some students that worked very, very quickly, especially in elementary school. And a lot of times they did really well. They finished it very quickly, but they finished it the way it was expected to be finished. And so I started creating these task cards that students who were finished early could go and kind of search through and look for a project or an activity. And then they would select a task card and they would have to complete the task on the card. I will tell you that one of my requirements was once a task card was chosen, after the students looked through and chose one, that they had to stick with that task card until it was complete. And they couldn't put it back and choose another one. And so until that particular task was done. And so I put the way that I set up the task cards again. When I started, I just printed them on cardstock and I cut it so that it was, like kind of looked like a large index card. And I laminated them and I just put them in a container and the students could kind of flip through and look at it. And so I always started with create, design, write. Kind of think of those Bloom's taxonomy words that demonstrates, explains, illustrates a particular concept. So you have a product and a concept using particular resources. And so I've given you two here as an example. I used one for math and I did one for ELA. With my math one, I had students, the challenge was to create an animation that demonstrates how to solve a math word problem using Google Slides or Stop Motion Studio. Again, free resource. So the details, this was what kind of my parameters. What were the parameters of the task? They could work alone or they could work with one other person. The animation had to be at least 20 seconds long and they had to include these three things. Again, these were the resources that they could use. If they wanted to use anything additional, they would have to run it by me. Here with a personal narrative, they could write or record, that's a fun piece, a personal narrative that illustrates an important event in the life using a choice of resources. So they could use a sketch, they could use Google Drawings, they could use Tinkercad Photo, Google Docs, Google Slides, iMovie, Canva, WeVideo. If you don't know, Canva is free for teachers. Just that's fun, a fun little piece. If you don't know, Canva can be free for teachers. And then details, what they had to do for was they had to make sure that they had complete sentences, correct spelling and punctuation, details that paint a clear picture of the event. It had to have logical sequencing and it must include text and images. And so I left it wide open. That's a very general concept of personal narrative that is included in the curriculum. It's something they had to learn, but they could express it to me in a way. And so I think with these task cards, there was a variety and a novelty that was introduced in the learning process. And so students were presented with these series of different questions or tasks, and it kept them motivated. It prevented that monotony, of day-to-day events. It kind of put a little bit of change in there and gave them something to look forward to. It also allowed them some student choice. So when I talk about not having to differentiate and do 27 different projects for all your students, you can have various projects. Maybe you have 27 students, but you have 5 personal narratives, and you have maybe 6 different task cards, but you have 5 of each task. And so you have 30 different task cards. So students can be doing the same task, but they're going to do it in different ways. And so kind of gives that student choice, but it doesn't always make you have to create, 27, 30 different projects for students. And then, it can provide the opportunity for feedback. You can give feedback to the students to assess their understanding, encourage them to correct their mistakes promptly, and they can use it as an opportunity for self-assessment as well. And then also, I think it interesting to see, to use them as progress trackers as well. Who are your early finishers? Who are completing the tasks? Who are doing them the correct way on the first try? Who's having to go back and redo and redo and redo? Having those students know that what's expected of them, if they're not creating the product that you expect them to create, they're going to have to go back and fix it. It's not something that they can just complete and turn in and move on to the next one. They actually have to pace themselves to do it correctly and meet your standards. You always have the option on the back too. You can put a rubric if you want to as well. I used to do that with certain projects, not with everything, but with certain ones, I would put a rubric attached to the back for what my expectations were when I was grading them. This is interactive. I'm not going to focus a whole lot on this because you can go through and take a look at this, but this is 30 different projects that you can use for a green screen. And so when you click on this, again, you have access to it. And all you have to do is go through and come down. And these are ways that you can use a green screen in your classroom. This is just, simple for elementary, 100th day of school. Maybe the students dress up as a 100-year-old and talk about what they would be doing when they were that old. Maybe for 100 day of school, they have $100 bill. What would they buy with a $100? This was fun because my kindergartner, my 13-year-old son, when he was a kindergartner, did this project and stood in front of a green screen, and they wrapped him in green fabric, so it was just his head, and they put his little animated face in front of a $100 bill. That was the background of the green screen, and he looked like a little floating head, and he said, if I had $100, I would buy 100 Papa Tarts. He was obsessed with Pop-Tarts when he was 5 years old. It was the breakfast of choice for a solid 9 months, I think. You pick your battles. So Pop-Tarts it was. And so his choice on the 100th day of school was to use his $100 to buy 100 Pop-Tarts. You can also use it with the older students with skip counting. And then we go into different project ideas, animal studies. These are in alphabetical order. Billboard, and then how you could use this with a project description, biographies, book reports, book and magazine covers, movie reviews or book reviews, campaign ads. There's a lot of different options for how to use a green screen in your classroom. And so, again, please just click on this and utilize that resource for you. Right here, I want to talk about the importance of participation. We all know that we have the students who are not going to speak in class, and that's okay. But they still need the opportunity to share their thoughts and their ideas. And so these resources, again, these are all hyperlinked for your use, allow the students to share their ideas, get instant feedback, allows the teacher to get quick assessments, and it encourages collaboration in the classroom. The one that I love, obviously, I love Pear Deck and I love Padlet. But Plickers is really fun. You print out the pages and you give the students these pages, and the students hold up kind of what look like portions of QR codes, and the teacher uses their phone or their computer to scan it, and it gives the feedback right back up on the board immediately. Mentimeter, if you haven't used Mentimeter, that is super, super fun. Mentimeter is something that I use with my colleagues, actually, when I'm doing training with my colleagues, to provide polls and feedback during meetings and stuff like that. So during presentations. So I love Mentimeter as well. Take a look at these resources. Again, I've hyperlinked them, so you can just click on them. It'll take you right to them. And finally, with review and practice, again, these, I left this for last because I didn't want to leave it out, but these are more of the common when you think about gamifying your classroom. These are more of the ones that you think of. I think some ones I left off there, quizzes. QUIZZIZZ quizzes is great. Look at Kahoot is another one that's on there. 99 Math is great. Bottle, my own children use Bottle in their fourth grade classroom this year. And you can also use PDF Drive for creating ebooks. So these were more of the ones that I didn't want to leave them out because they're more of the classic resources for quote unquote creating games in your classroom. But there's lots of ways to use them. So make sure that you don't just block yourself into using gamifying in the classroom as just only these. Because there's a lot of different ways that you can use games in the classroom. So making sure that you understand your students, again, like I said, start simple, start small, and then regularly evaluate what's working for your students, what's not. Talk to them about, are the task cards great? Do you need different ones? Do you need more challenges? What do you need? What do you want to see? Can you create your own task cards? Put it back on them. If you have a student who's gone through 6 different task cards, have them create task cards for you. And put it back on them. So making sure that you understand your students and you're communicating with them and you're tailoring your gaming to suit their learning styles and their preferences as well. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. This is my information. Contact me. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, I'll make sure that the link is open so that you can actually click on it. I'm pretty sure I got it, but if not, I want to make sure that that's open for you, and I'll do that directly following this webinar. And I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for attending today's NCEA webinar. NCEA continuously strives to improve the quality of our services for our members based on feedback. We will use your input to inform future work and improve services. This survey should take about 5 minutes to complete, and I've just inputted it in the chat. And if you're interested in a certificate of attendance, please include your email address and name at the end of the survey. Since your certificate will be sent via automated email, please check your spam if you don't see an email within a few minutes. To learn more about upcoming webinars, please visit ncea.org/webinar and have a great week.
Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us.
Thank you so much.